Vagrant Story.
Yeah.
Vagrant Story.
Which is a super late gen PlayStation 1 action RPG. Directed by Yasumi Matsuno. I had to make sure I got the name right.
You got it. You crushed it.
Who is the guy who directed Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 12.
Most of 12.
Most of Final Fantasy
Yeah.
12, which is my favorite Final Fantasy game.
Agreed.
And Vagrant Story is sort of the genesis of the idea of the Evil East Alliance. Like Tactics was set there, but Vagrant Story was the game that kind of made it its own world outside of the Final Fantasy, or within the Final Fantasy series. Super cool action RPG where you can pause the world around you to fight enemies, kind of like Parasite Eve.
Yeah, it reminded me of Parasite Eve, and then later on, even like the Fallout games or like Mass Effect, where it was.
You can target limbs to do like separate kind of damage. Like the battle system is really deep. The customization in the game is really deep. Like you can craft your own weapons and armor. And
Sorry, I was thinking about targeting the DAC.
how robust is this DAC targeting system? DATs. This game doesn't have VATs; it has DATs.
Pro tip: every enemy in the game, the DAC is the weak.
The DAC advanced targeting system.
But
Damn it.
it's really cool in the way that like the battle mechanics work and the crafting system works. There's no real NPCs outside of the story. Like you don't go into towns and interact with people. You don't go to stores and buy things like you do in a typical RPG.
Yeah.
It's super heavily influenced by Shakespeare and old-timey France, which I thought was really cool. There's a lot of like nods to French architecture and stuff, which is pretty impressive to pull off in a PlayStation 1 game.
The game was super pretty. It was all polygonal, but like hand-drawn polygonal.
Yeah, it kind of looked like the cutscenes kind of looked like comic books.
Yeah, yeah. Really cool. It had this brushstroke, painterly. Not quite like Okami, but really just distinct art style. And it was one of those really late PS1 games that was like, no, I didn't realize the system could have things that look this good.
To this day, it's one of my favorite stories ever told in a video game.
Really
It's
good.
a really great story about. It's kind of a classic tale. Like you go to investigate this link between this occult leader and a senator, essentially, a duke.
Yeah.
And the duke gets
DAC?
murdered. A DAC. Yeah. And the duke gets murdered, and it opens up this whole like sort of mysticism behind this cult, and the characters are all really interesting and really well developed, and I just think it's such an awesome story. I think at the time EGM called it Medieval Gear Solid, which I think
That's
was
real
like
good.
a really cool description of it.
Nice work.
Dan
Well,
Stapleton
and-
would be real happy with that one.
It also, like, I didn't realize this until today when I went back to do some reading about it, but the story of Vagrant Story has its own subtitle, and the story is called The Phantom Pain, which is really crazy.
That's
Yeah.
full circle.
Yeah. And that's also an ability. Phantom Pain is an ability you can get in the game. But yeah,
That's what happens if you target the DAC.
you hit somebody in the deck. Yeah, but no, it's a killer game, and I feel like it sort of flew underneath a lot of people's radar. And it's on Vita. You can get it on Vita. You can get it on
You get the old
PlayStation
PS1
Network.
classic.
Yeah.
That game's awesome.
Doesn't look super hot
Yeah.
these days.
A lot of PS1 games visually don't hold up super well.
but I still go back and play it every couple of years. I'll play through it, and the sort of combat, like the rhythm-based combat and the story, they hold up super well. So if you missed it, I would highly recommend going back and
Agreed.
play
That was a good choice.
Yeah,
Got
thank
us a
you.
nice little DAC run too.
Yeah,
The DAC attack with Zach.
perfect.
Perfect.
Nailed it.